Hey, folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, we have a very, very special guest today to talk about my favorite subject. That's not why she's here, but I don't know if it's your favorite subject, but it's probably most people's favorite, or a lot of people's favorite subject.
It's not college basketball, is it?
No, it's not college basketball. It's not the NBA. It's not golf. It's food. We have the great Sue Selasky, the Free Press's food writer. That's what we'll call her for now. That's what she wanted to be called. So let's go with that. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay,
Thanks for
Sue.
having me. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good to have you in. We're gonna get to the $99 Sunday at some point. Carlos wanted to talk about that. He just wants to rile up the masses, but I do have some thoughts on that too, Carlos, as I'm sure you do. But before we do that, Sue, we wanted to talk to you about the Italian beef sandwich. And look, you can talk about all things food. This is a food show. I mean, food friendly show. Sorry, but let's talk about the Italian beef sandwich and the recent rush on them because of Hulu's show, or is it FX's show, or is it FX and Hulu are the same company? I can't
It's
remember.
FX on Hulu.
FX on Hulu. FX on Hulu.
Yeah, that's how I understood it.
Called The
Yes.
Bear, and which of course is about a series chef who comes home to Chicago because his brother dies and takes over the Italian beef restaurant, and that the craze of that and what's going on. And I think it's Carlos and I both think it's great that you've managed to localize this. Do we even say that anymore in our business, Sue? Do we still say
Yes.
localize?
I think
Okay.
so. Yes.
Okay. Well, in any
Yes.
case, tell us about what's going on with the Italian beef craze right now.
Well, it's kind of funny because I don't watch a lot of streaming shows, and a friend of mine told me about this. They said, "Oh, you'll really like this show, The Bear." And I said, "Okay." And so I started watching it, or before I started watching it, I started hearing about the sandwich, and I thought, well, I got to watch this show. And so of course I Googled it, and I thought, oh my gosh, this thing is just going crazy. And so I remembered the place in Hazel Park called Matt and Moe's. And I remembered that one, and I thought, okay, well, I'll reach out to them, watch the show and everything. And the show, it is about, the Italian beef sandwich, but it's also about a lot of other things too, working in a kitchen, how the chef works with his employees, and it's really good. I binge watched it all 8 episodes in one night. It was great. But the sandwich is phenomenal. I mean, it's just a really, I understand the appeal to it. I may have had it a couple of years ago, probably a lot longer than a couple of years ago, but it's real hearty, and it's just a really delicious sandwich. So
I don't know, Shawn. I don't know if Shawn's going to be truthful about this, but I have never had an Italian beef sandwich. I've never even heard of an Italian beef sandwich before this show. And I've been to Chicago many, many times. And of course, Chicago just likes to claim everything. Chicago style pizza and Chicago dogs.
hot dogs.
Yeah, everything.
Yes.
It's like, oh, Chicago, whatever. Chicago invented food apparently, right after New York did. But I've never heard of it. And so just a little gripe, a little aside, is the day that we're recording the show is on a Tuesday. And I was very excited today because I was kind of in the area of Matt and Moe's in Hazel Park. And I saw, they open at 11:30, and I looked on my phone. I get there at 11:29. Guess what? They're closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So I didn't get my Italian beef. I will be back. But can you explain to our one listener out there, what is this? Sounds to me kind of like a French dip, essentially, but a little bit different. How do you make it? What's inside of it?
Okay, so traditionally, what they do, like especially we'll use Matt and Moe's as an example. There's two other places that I found too that I believe they go along the same lines. They sear this big hunk of beef. It's usually it's some kind of roast. I've seen sirloin roast. I've seen top round. I've seen all kinds of recipes for it. So they sear it, and then they roast it in a not a beef broth, but an au jus for hours. It takes 10 hours.
Wasn't
to
it
cook.
2 days? Didn't Matt and Moe's or someone?
It's a 2-day process at Matt and Moe's, and so then they take it out. Then you have to let it rest overnight. Then you do something. You probably. I'm kind of assuming he simmers down the au jus, and then the next day you slice it, and then you put it back in the au jus. Then you put your au jus on the side. And when they make the sandwich, and the roll that, how they serve it, which bread or bun they serve it on, that matters too. At Matt and Moe's, they use one from Chicago, and then they pile on the beef, and then you can get the sandwich, what they call, wet, dry, or they call dry, wet, or dipped. So dry is no au jus on it. It's just straight from the meat. If you get it wet, they put a ladle full of the au jus, and then if you get it dipped, they dip the whole sandwich in the au jus. So when I had it, I didn't do that. I got the au jus on the side because when I got it, I had to, because I had a 45-minute drive home. I don't live close, and so I thought, okay, and anyhow, and then the topping on it matters too. So they put this giardiniera, which is a blend of jalapenos and carrots and a couple of other vegetables, and they put that on the top. And then you can get sweet peppers on it too, sautéed sweet peppers and onions. So I got the I got it all, and it was and I'll say that the au jus was spot on. I mean, it was very, very flavorful. It was nicely seasoned. Sometimes those are really salty. You get those sauces and stuff that are really salty, and it was really delicious. And I ate the sandwich for 3 days. I mean, I think it had like a pound of meat in it. I mean, it was packed, and it was just, it was very good. And I see the appeal to it. The meat was tender, and it was just, I couldn't see getting it dipped. I think it might be a little too messy.
Well,
but
I have to interject just for a second. Tyler Davis, one of the assistant sports editors who's from Chicago, basically, if you don't get it dipped, don't even talk to him. Like, you can't, there's no point to him not. And basically, to the listener out there, getting a dip means you drown it in the sauce, you hold it, you submerge it in the au jus. And so you're right. So you cannot. In fact, that's what I was thinking about, because I was like, there's no way I can take this home. I'm going to have to eat it there if I get it dipped, because it's just a juicy, watery mess that I'm sure is delicious. So, and by the way, 3 days, 3 days to eat this, Shawn would have eaten that in 3 minutes.
Yeah. For me to, I asked them, I said, look, I've got about a 40-minute drive home. And she goes, I'd get it on the side. She goes, I wouldn't even put it. I said, okay, I appreciated her saying it. And
you don't have to prove your bona fides to Carlos, Sue. I mean, this is, we try to, this is safe space in here. So I have a few thoughts. First of all, Carlos, when you use the word watery to describe anything when you're going to eat or drink or whatever, I guess, unless it's water, that's usually a pejorative. So I'm just tossing that out there. Secondly, Sue, I think we've realized the hostility he's got with Chicago, because it is a lot like, and I have had Italian beef, and I mean, you can get it at Midway Airport for one, Carlos, when next time you're going through there. But it is a lot like the French dip. It's a very similar idea, right? You put vegetables in a roasting pan with the top round big, and the jus is similar. The difference is the peppers, the giardiniera, jus giardiniera. I can never pronounce that properly.
Yeah, I always say giardiniera.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a place in LA, Carl's home, that invented the French dip, or at least they lay claim to it, called Philippe's. And they also, it's a great little place. It's just off downtown. They also dip, but they ask you if you want 1 or 2 dips, because their dips are pretty quick. They don't let them swim. It's not a 1,600 meter race in there. It's more like it's a 50-yard sprint, and it's in and out, just so we can keep it a little bit sports wise. But it's in and out. But Sue, can you tell us about the other 2 places so we don't play favorites?
Okay, well,
there's several, more than 2.
Or okay, at least that you wrote about.
Right, and I did try about a year ago. I did try Portillo's, which they opened a year ago, and the other 2 I didn't try. But I've heard that they've got great reviews. And the one is the sandwich at it's in Mount Clemens, Mays, and the owner, it's his favorite sandwich, so that's why it's on his menu. And these are relatively new places. Both of the Portillo's opened about a year, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, And the other two places in in Macomb Township, they're rather new, 3 years, I think the restaurants have been there. So I had the one at Portillo's, and that is a Chicago-based chain. And there's only one here in Michigan, and that's in Sterling Heights. And I didn't get that sandwich dipped, but I did get it. I ate it at the restaurant, so I did get the au jus with, I think they call it gravy there. I got that, got it there. So it was along the same lines. I mean, it was it was a beef sandwich. I don't think it was. I don't recall if it was like the same style bun or not.
Have you been to the Italian sandwich place on? It's fairly new. Is it on Woodward or Cass? I can't remember. I've actually been there. I should know.
Rocco's.
Yeah. Have you seen an Italian beef there? Because they've got chicken parm, and they've got great subs and great sandwiches.
Do they? I called there. They do not. They do not have it. That was one of the other places that I thought of that. But they don't. They have he described an Italian sub, which sounded to me like it was cold cuts.
By the way, just so the listener out there understands this, whatever. I mean, Sue wrote a great story about this, great article about breaking down all the different places, Mays and Portillo's and Matt and Moe's. And so you can either go to the Free Press and look for it under entertainment or dining, or just follow her on Twitter, Susan Marie Cooks. And she has links to her story there. I think it's at the very top. About the bear. So it's a great breakdown. But one thing I wanted to highlight, what maybe my favorite part of the article, Sue, I'm going to read it to you because you probably don't. I don't want to make you read your own stories, but this is my favorite part. It's not just about the sandwich, right, and making it the right way and all that stuff. You have to eat it the right way, and if you dip it, which means drown it in the au jus. Matt Marzullo, who is the co-owner of Matt and Moe's in Hazel Park, says, you take the sandwich to the ledge because it's so messy. Ledge of the counter. Put your feet apart and have your elbows on the ledge and start eating. It's more about the lean, so you don't get the juice on your clothes. So that is my favorite part. And I've actually watched videos on YouTube of people eating Italian beef, and they exactly do it. They're like at a 45-degree angle, leaning on it, so you don't get all this. Not watery. Shawn, give me you're the columnist, you're the wordsmith. What's a better word than
I would just say watery? Call it what it is. Juicy. That's the jus. So you don't get jus all over you.
You don't get the jus. Okay, I'm not as fancy and refined as you are. So
no, the jus there's 3 letters.
It's French.
JUS. It's not very fancy. Sue will tell you that.
Yeah, it's au jus. I mean, it's
it's been around. It's been around in the country with us in the U.S. for 50 years, Carlos. I don't think it's fancy.
Yeah. By the way, one little thing, Sue, just so you don't fall into the trap that I fell into. Shawn loves to tell you about fantastic restaurants such as Philippe's. But if you happen to go to Los Angeles with Shawn and he tells you he's going to take you to Philippe's, don't believe him, because he'll tell you, oh, I went there yesterday already or 2 days ago. Sorry, I forgot. You traveled 2,000 miles to join me at Philippe's, but it slipped my mind. So let's go to, I don't know. What did you take me to? Like a hipster Taco Bell or something like that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was near the airport. You were tired. And you needed to get to sleep, and you were tired. And so we did that. I was thinking about you at that point. By the way, Sue, the other thing about the French dip, especially at Philippe's or places like that, it's the same idea. It's the jus with the beef, the roasted beef that's been sliced and dipped, and it's nice and wet. But the heat with the French dip out there is either horseradish or really, really hot mustard. So it's the same kind of idea. It's the peppers. You want the heat,
right? And those peppers, are strong.
No, they're very strong. So I wanted to ask you, just get back to the bear in the show, and you said you love the show. Do you remember? You've been doing this a long time. Can you think of other series or other movies or just TV shows in general that have kind of inspired rushes or crazes with food? I hate to put you on the spot like that.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, I can't think of there. It's kind of ironic. Before I watched The Bear, it was either the weekend before, a few days before, I watched the movie The Chef, which was on HBO or something. Love that movie. And it's been around for a long time. I've seen it, I don't know how many times, but they did this Cubano sandwich.
Yep.
and you watch them. And then the one actor ended up doing a series on, I think it was Netflix, that was kind of based on the
with
show.
Roy Choi.
And is that who? Okay.
Yeah, John Favreau is the actor, and he did that with Roy Choi on Netflix. Yep. Also called The Chef, right?
Yeah. Yep. And which I did not watch, but I loved the movie The Chef. I just thought it was really, really good, and how they, get this food truck. But I'm trying. I can't think of anything off the top of my head of something that inspired, food
well,
craze.
I can't either. I was just, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot again, but I can't either. That's what it's interesting with what the Bear has done. And that, I mean, the Bear's drawn all sorts of followers for lots of reasons, but it's not just about the Italian beef sandwich. But yeah, no, it's like Jaws. What Jaws did, kept you out of the water. Remember? It's the same kind of effect. But have you ever worked in a kitchen? Have you ever a professional kitchen? I mean, yeah.
Well, we had no, I haven't. Except for testing recipes, our own test kitchen, which we no longer have. And but I've worked with a lot of chefs in their kitchen.
I was just curious what you thought about the realism of the show, right? And the chaos and the
yeah. I thought it was, I don't want to say spot on, but a lot of stuff happens in the kitchen, and here was the main character who worked in a really high-end upscale restaurant, presumably in New York, and comes back to Chicago, and he's bringing everything that his chef's wisdom to a sandwich shop, and everybody's calling everybody yes chef, which you don't see that a lot in like a smaller mom and pop type setting. And he's just trying to I think instill his belief, because he's the character was supposed to have be a James Beard nominee or awardee, which is a very it's the culinary Oscars, so and I think part of the show, what I did like is how they're talking about different foods too. So it wasn't just the sandwich. And there was, you could just tell there was a lot of food scenes in there. His sister makes this chicken piccata that it looks great, So I think there's these other food aspects to the show, and it's renewed for another season. So who knows what's going to happen next for the next season.
And I look forward to that. Sorry, Carlos, because Carlos wants to ask a question. I just want to say that I've been trying to get everybody at the Free Press to say yes columnist to me, and it's not. It is not working at all. So and I want Carlos to say yes chef to me, but he won't do it.
What's funny? It was years ago. I was reading a David Sedaris book, and he goes to France and starts taking French classes, to learn the language. He's like, chef actually just means boss there. And you never thought it, you always think it's just a culinary term, but it means boss. So Shawn, if I call you yes chef, that's boss. So it's more than appropriate. Yeah. I'll start calling you yes chef, of course.
Okay. What were you gonna ask Sue before I so rudely interrupted?
Oh, no. You know what was interesting about the show is it was a fantastic show. I mean, I think everybody couldn't help but binge it, right? And it flies by. The funny thing about the show is that the sandwich isn't really that prominent, because they talk about it, and it's obviously a big part of their business, just a little storefront. But he really wants to, the main character, the chef, wants to elevate the cuisine, right? So he wants to do all these different high-minded things. And there's actually a lot of conflict with him and his friend, who he calls cousin. A guy, by the way, he plays, the character's name is Richie, but he's played by this actor named, I think it's Eben Moss Bachrach. Oh, if this guy doesn't win whatever Emmy or whatever, this guy steals the show. I mean, the main character is good, and a really good supporting cast. Really, there's an authenticity to these people. They probably did some training in kitchens to see what the vibe is like, how there's a lot of toxicity. It's a hard watch sometimes, but this guy who plays Richie, I almost wish they would just spin him off, like just have a show called Richie. And he's so much fun, but it's always a constant struggle of, listen, this is what people, hardworking, blue collar people in the neighborhood want. And you want to gentrify it and have this highfalutin French laundry crap stuff, James Beard stuff, So it's an interesting dynamic between the two longtime friends, and there's a tragedy involved and all this stuff. So I just thought that was funny that the sandwich is not like the star of the show, really. It's mentioned, but it's not that prominent.
I think the things that I saw on the show when they show that big hunk of beef that is so nicely seared. I mean, it's just like, that's what you want. I mean, when you're making this, that's exactly what you want. And so they did a great job, with that. And from what I understand, the main character, he did work with a few chefs at a culinary school I was reading something online somewhere about it, but yeah, like I said, you look at it, of course, the food styling is great. And it's like, wow, that's how if I'm going to make this, that's how I want it to turn out. So,
yeah, I think he elevated it by adding carrots and onions basically to the roast. So I'm not sure, right.
Some ketchup.
Yeah. And some ketchup. Hey, Sue, before we let you go,
sure.
Can we talk about this $99 sundae? I want to withhold I want to withhold my opinion because I want to hear what Carlos has to say, but and you have to say about it. But it's the Sugar Factory. It's a restaurant that's coming in less than a week, maybe, in Detroit.
Monday. It opens Monday. I just got another news release on it. So they announced it, I believe, back in January, and it's over the top desserts. It's a candy store. It's a restaurant. I mean, the menu is really food and dessert food and dessert items that they have. I mean, it's a huge menu. And they just, this $99, sundae, I mean, he has 20 scoops of ice cream. I'm reading it right here. They've got hot fudge, caramel, cookie chunks, a cupcake in it, candy necklaces, cake pops. I mean, waffle cones, all kinds of things. And it's $99 according to the menu, and it serves 12 people. And I'm thinking 12 people, that's 20 scoops of ice cream. I mean, it's just a lot in there, but they have these milkshakes. Some are boozy milkshakes and some are regular ones, but they have, the Nutella banana milkshake. They have just like I said, it's a huge menu. So
what do you think, Carlos?
How can this place not be I mean, this is like the Shawn Windsor, Grand Slam. I mean, how can this not be boozy milkshakes and 20 scoop sundaes? How is this not going to be a hit? And it really sounds like they're really brilliant about the marketing, because I remember reading this years ago in a book called Contagion, I think it was. And the whole idea was that was a Philly cheesesteak that was, I think it was $100 Philly cheesesteak. And of course it gets headlines, right? I think that was the headline in the free press, $99 sundae. So how, what? $99 sundae, so it's brilliant marketing, right?
Oh yeah. And it's just, I think there's a lot of celebrity backing to this. There's a few things that they've had, there's some of the candy that they sell I don't know if it's backed by celebrity, but there's a lot of celebrity things going on with this. But the other thing that struck me, aside from all the desserts, the ice cream and everything, is their menu. I mean, there's soups, salads, there's entrees, there's sandwiches, there's burgers, there's just other basic desserts. There's cheesecake. They just have a lot of it's a big menu. I mean, online it's a huge menu. So and their reservations, you can't get a reservation until after, I think I looked it up. It was like something like mid-September.
Wow.
To make it to through Open Table, and I think they're booked up then.
So it's working to Carlos's point. I wondered, I wanted to reserve judgment. I wasn't sure if Carlos was going to hammer the idea as some, sign of the end times, the fall of the American empire and all that sort of thing. But $99, Sue, for 12 people. I'm not a mathematician, but it's less than $10. Was it $9 a
Mhm.
eight,
Yeah.
$9 per person? That's
Per
not bad
person.
for a Sunday. You might even say, hey, it's a scoop and a half per person. So that's
Sue,
not a huge,
Sue
Mhm.
a huge
Selasky,
Sunday.
frugal gourmet Sue Selasky would never pay $9 for a Sunday. Shawn, you know better than that. What's the most you pay for a Sunday, Sue?
Oh, I don't know. It's been a while. I don't know. I couldn't even guess. I don't know. $5. I don't know.
Yeah, at the
I don't know. I don't know.
Dairy Queen,
You-
sure. But
Yeah.
but if you were
I went to this custard place that's nearby that's really famous. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna get a medium. I asked this kid was walking away from it. And I said, what size is that? He said a medium. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's huge. My husband and I will split that. So I asked when I ordered it, I go, how much is that? She goes, $3. And I'm like, okay, can I have a cone? I had him put it in a cup, and then I said, can I get a cone with it? She goes, yeah, she put a cone on it. And I said, oh, how much extra for the cone? She said, nothing. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was $3 for
yet
both
another
of us.
yet another Sue Selasky hack. She just came up.
Yes.
She gives us the hack, Shawn, at the grocery store. So get the sundae, get an extra little cone, crumble it on
Mhm.
there, and you get some free toppings, right?
Yes. Well, that is because I was driving too. I was by myself, and I thought, I can't eat all this, and I can't hold a cone while driving. And like I said, my husband and I, we split it. It was, it was huge, but so I don't know what a sundae. I mean, I haven't had an ice cream sundae in a long time, but you're right, Shawn. I do think, $99. I mean, you have a little birthday party,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
If you're, for your kids and, 10 friends or
No. Don't fall for this, Sue. He's going to say, let's 12 of us split this. And he's going to take about half of that sundae for himself.
I like Sundays fine, but I'm not necessarily a huge Sunday person. A bit of, if it's good ice cream, right? That's what I would want to know,
Right.
Sue. Is that ice cream any good? Because that's
what I want to know
I
too.
would have reservations that it would be. That would be my question.
Do you get to go to a tasting day or something, press day?
I don't know. I'm gonna find out. I thought maybe that we should, kind of check it out and see, what it's all about. And I just can't imagine what the first day is going to be like, and if it's just going to be packed.
I'm not trying to give you extra work, but here's my as your assignment, part-time assignment editor. I would say, here's your first story from Sugar Factory is, I tried the $99 sundae. Here's what I thought.
Okay.
That sounds like a Carlos headline, right? Yeah. I think that's two eyes, Sue, and one headline. So that sounds just like Carlos. I think we're doing great.
I can freelance it.
Hey, Sue, thank you so much for joining us and give us your time today. And please, we'd love a report back on that Sunday. And
absolutely
keep finding all these fabulous gems all over our area. And folks, listeners out there, please keep reading Sue and her great work at the Detroit Free Press. We will talk to you soon, Sue, and we will.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn.
My name is Kerry Jr. II. I'm a podcast producer and reporter with the Detroit Free Press, and now the host of Freep's new weekly podcast, On the Line. Our job is to understand the issues and the people that the issues affect in our state and region and tell the news. I want Detroiters, I want Michiganders, I want Metro Detroiters to hear themselves and maybe get a sense of peace in this podcast. Maybe not in the topics we're covering, but in the sense that we're the Detroit Free Press. And you can come here to know what's happening and trust that we're going to tell the truth, give you the facts, and do it authentically. We're going to give you the voices that are in those areas, whether it be in Owasso, whether it be in Petoskey, or whether it be in Birmingham, Warren, Grosse Pointe, Southwest Detroit. We're going to give you what it sounds like to be there. So every Friday in your feed, wherever you get your podcast, when you press play, we want this podcast to sound like home. We want it to sound like Michigan. We want it to sound like Detroit. I think that's all I got. So let the journey begin.
Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, I could talk about food all day, but this is a sports show.
Is it?
And I don't know it's a show about you, I guess. And so it is fun to talk about food, and hopefully somebody out there will, I don't know, maybe nobody wants to spend $99 on a Sunday, Carlos, but I wouldn't blame him. I'm not sure I would. But we do need to talk about sports, right? At some point, not just metaphors.
On Jeanette, we have a person on our staff named Jeanette Delgado who requires us to talk about sports, or she gets very, very testy, very angry with us.
Yeah, so. Very angry, anxious, probably also, right? You know, jittery. You know,
just straight up anger. Just,
do you think so?
Yeah.
Well, she's got to work on that. Maybe you can recommend a therapist or something.
Do you blame her?
Counseling program. What do you think? Like a 12-step for angry.
I think she's got to go listen.
Yeah, angry managing editors who are forced to listen to podcasts. No,
she can go listen to like On the Line or the Pistons Pulse, and that'll calm her down.
Yeah, that will calm her down. Maybe even help her sleep. So that would be great, right? The soothing tones. Oh, our producer, who y'all can't see, but we can. He's laughing, and he doesn't want to be laughing. So that's the look on his face. He's laughing against his own will. That's all. All right, Carlos. Let's talk. I don't know if I said this at the top of the show, but let's talk Tigers a little bit, or specifically Robbie Grossman, who was traded to Atlanta, 3-4 right before the deadline. I don't even remember. It's all blurring together. The summer's over and life's over. So that's all I know. But what you wanted to talk about Robbie Grossman, the fact that what's the table to set here, Carlos? He is hitting better as a Brave and made some comments about how they fixed something and figured something out, with the implication being that they could not, something they could not figure out or see in Detroit. And it became national headlines within the baseball community. And AJ Hinch has since responded, but before we get to that, I want to hear what you have to think about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, if you didn't think the Tiger season could get worse, right? Like, it was bad enough that they trade Isaac Paredes to the Rays for Austin Meadows, and that doesn't work out. And then Paredes is just beating the world, just amazing right off the bat, hitting home run after home run, and he's cooled down, but that was like, oh man, like, of course this happens. And then, Meadows is dealing with all these different injuries and on the IL and all that. But then you get this with Robbie Grossman, right? They just trade him for a pitching prospect. And suddenly, not only does he start hitting better, but they go on and on, he and the Braves go on and on about, oh yeah, we just saw some video and we have some kind of magical analysis machine or something that nobody else has. And we were able to figure out what was wrong with the swing path, his hand path, whatever it was. And suddenly Robbie Grossman's like fixed, and he can hit from the left side of the plate again. And it's just a knife, Shawn, just the knife in the backs of poor Tigers fans, and twisting it. And like, it's not bad enough that you're going through a terrible season, but then, you're trading your trash, and then it becomes treasure, to your trade partner. So I just have to say it. I feel so bad for Tigers fans. But here's my thing is whoever found this, right? Whoever found this in the Braves analytics department and looked at the film and whatever, fed it into the computer and got the answer out, they need to find that person, whoever it is. Like, I'm imagining it's like the Jonah Hill character from Moneyball. And, someone needs to go to the Braves facility and tell them, who are you? And steal him and trade Javi Baez straight up for this guy, whoever, some analytics math geek, and get him in the Tigers analytics department to start doing that work for the Tigers, because that's what they need.
Well, the Braves do have the results to back it up, right? I mean, so right. We can say that. It's interesting because I don't want to dispute what Robbie Grossman said, or whatever they did to the Braves. By the way, his last 4 games, he's gone 0 for 3, 0 for 3, and 0 for 4, and then he had 1 hit in the other one. So it's not, right?
Well, there's the ebbs and flows. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, there are. So it's not like he's leading the league and hitting all of a sudden. So I want to put a little bit of context there. But Carlos, I feel like, look, first of all, AJ Hinch was asked the last couple of days to respond a little bit, or just what he thought about it, and he took the high road mostly, right? He said, more or less, that it was frustrated, that they were frustrated too, that everybody was frustrated. They, that they couldn't unlock Grossman and get him to hit where he had hit the year before. The one thing he did say that I thought was sort of interesting is that sometimes when you get into a different environment, and you get traded, and the expectations. He said, not just a different. It's not just it was new, Carlos, that the Braves are a new organization. Is it that you go there with the expectation you're on a winning team and you're a team that just won the World Series, right? And it's a different psychology, and that can. He didn't spell this out, but the idea is that can raise your focus somewhere, or raise, and that's human nature. So there's probably some truth to that too. And maybe Robert Grossman didn't want to throw the Tigers under the bus in that way, saying, "I has a more," but nobody knew what they were doing. Everybody was, you know what I mean? So I wonder how much of that is part of this too. It's a fair question. I think.
Well, that's a really, uncommonly good point by you, Shawn. I mean, that speaks to so many issues with this situation with Robbie Grossman. Not Paredes quite as much, but with Robbie Grossman, the Braves are, they're an elite team. Right, coming off a World Series championship, they've been playing better. Their expectations are high for that organization. People expect them to win, and you look at what the Braves do, right? And it's like the Dodgers. The Dodgers are the same thing. Is it just that we expect winning here? I don't know if it's just that, because you see, like, as you know, I'm a Dodger fan. I follow them closely. They've done it over and over with Justin Turner, with Chris Taylor, with your boy Trace Thompson. I don't want you to start talking about Golden State and NBA, but Trace Thompson, right? I mean, they do it with these guys. Trace Thompson was in the Tigers minor league system. He was with the Mud Hens, and then, they got rid of him, or they traded him for cash, I think, to the Dodgers, and suddenly he's like almost an everyday player. He's pretty valuable, putting up some decent numbers. So it's not just this is just a magical organization and people expect you to win. I think they do their work. They work on player development. And that's what I want to know. What's going to happen sometime soon is you're going to get a new general manager. You're going to probably change that analytics department. And someone's going to have to answer for that. And AJ Hinch, I think, cannot be continually absolved of any of this.
I agree.
He has because he's going to have a part in finding that general manager. And if you're going to have more of a stake in that kind of higher level decision making, you got to take some of the ownership for the failures of some of that, player, development and all that stuff. So I want to see that move forward. But I don't want to get to my second point yet. If you want to say something else, I was
just going to say there's a reason, and I don't want to go too old school. It's not that long ago, but there's a reason Jim Leland used to say over and over and over, and he would say it on the record. He'd say it off the record. We can say that now because he's retired, but it's
way off the record.
The talent, right? He is a talent. He used to tell us that all the time. It's not me. He tried to keep, if guys got low, whatever psychology, and there's politics of a team, there's managing human beings, and that matters for sure. And you and I argue sometimes about how much coaching does matter from sport to sport, but he always used to say, and I think he's right. Mel Tucker was talking about this, the Michigan State football coach, at a luncheon a few weeks ago. Just the idea of talent, that's ultimately what matters. Now, that doesn't mean you'll win, but without it, you don't have much chance to win, right? And so you mentioned Trace Thompson, and I don't want to get into the Golden State Warriors, but I was thinking about what you're talking about, the magical organization. Well, Golden State does the same thing. People go there, they get better. How much of that is the coaching? How much of that is they've got one of the best players who's ever played the game, and he does things on the court, and they are able to set the culture around that talent. Well, Atlanta has a couple of spectacular players, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, they got more than a couple of spectacular players. They got a lot of really good players also, but
baseball's different.
So you wonder, right? I mean, do you catch that happened with the Tigers in 2006? They had talent, but they also had that thing that you could feel early on, and they carried it all the way to the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the manager, and this is where I'm not sure about AJ Hinch is, it's always about talent, especially in a sport like baseball and basketball. But it's not just your stars. I'm not talking about, like developing or getting the most out of an all-star caliber player. And I might even put Grossman in that category of an above average potential. He could have an all-star year kind of a thing. I'm talking about your middle level players more, the guys who aren't stars, who are mostly starters, but like developing those guys and making sure, a guy like Justin Turner, I'll go back to him, right? A guy who was just trying to find his way in the majors and was a platoon guy, and they turned him into an everyday player. And then I I don't think he's an all-star, but like borderline all-star.
It's a good example.
Guys like that. Yeah. And I mean, like Trace Thompson, a guy who's just barely trying to, I mean, I don't know, he's played for 100 teams trying to find his way. And then you can make him a contributor. They kind of got that a little bit out of Akil Baddoo last year. And I think that's what the hope was with Hinch and, Avila and that whole organization is like, hey, maybe we can develop some of these guys, maybe we can push them beyond what they have traditionally been and get a little bit more out of them, make a borderline guy a contributor, an everyday starter, a potential all-star, that kind of stuff. Are you elevating these players? And the talent has to be there, of course, but there's all kinds of talent levels. Is the talent level borderline all-star, or is it just, everyday player kind of thing?
No, for sure. You make great points. And as you usually do when you're being sincere, it's just a beautiful moment in the history of this podcast. I really want to point.
I'm crying. You can't. Reader, the listener can't. See
I really want to point that out. No, it's a chicken or an egg thing a little bit, right? But you're right. The development, and I'm curious about the Tigers in terms of, and obviously it's not just the analytics, right? It's the scouting, and then also the development. So there's like three areas: the scouting to bring them in, and the development to make them better, and the analytics, I guess, kind of go with both of those things in terms of how do you scout and how do you develop and what are you looking for and what are you trying to scout to or develop. So, and they've just not been very good. And that's putting it kindly, right? In any of these areas. And, we'll see how much that changes with the new general manager. But it was, you're right. It probably wasn't fun for Tiger fans to hear that. And I would imagine that what they saw in the video and the adjustment of his hands as he's coming through or whatever it was specifically probably did help. On the other hand, he was good here last year, right? So, especially the last part of the year. So he did that here. So who knows? I mean, I just don't know, to be honest with you. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, I mean, the worrisome part about it is that it seems like, the players who haven't been hurt with the Tigers this year have regressed. I mean, even in they couldn't help Torkelson. All these guys. Obviously Baez has struggled and it's just kind of been a theme of not getting as much as you'd hoped for out of these players. And that is analytics. It has to be coaching too. Right. So, one season is a small sample size. But this can't continue. And this is something else that your buddy Leland used to talk about all the time is he loved having a veteran player and looking at their statistics and saying, this is how they have historically performed, because that's baseball, because 500 at bats in baseball or 200 at bats tells you a lot more than just a cold streak over a week or two, so he would always lean on the historic statistics and say, this is who this guy really is. You guys he liked to make fun of us. You guys get all crazy when someone's on a hot streak for 5 games and you get all depressed when a guy's on a cold streak for 5 games or whatever it is. Like, we ride the roller coaster and managers don't. Baseball doesn't as much. So this year, a lot of weird stuff going on, a lot of injuries, a lot of problems, a lot of shakeup, so next year with more stability, then maybe we can see more of, is the analytics department, something going on there that needs to be changed? Because if you can't help your own players and you're shipping them off, it's one thing when you ship them off. It's another thing when you ship them off and they do well with their new teams. That's a major indictment for your whole organization.
It generally is. It's like the New England members for so long.
Exactly.
New England had that rep, right? You go there and they can turn anybody into a player. I mean, that's my point. That's my second point about this is it not to get into the Lions too much or anything, but Kyle Van Noy, he's the poster child of that, right? They didn't know how to use him here. And he goes to the Patriots and suddenly like, yeah, we're going to make you work and you're going to be a borderline Pro Bowler. The Lions had to like cast him off because they couldn't figure out if he was supposed to stand up or have his, hand on the ground or whatever it was. And the Patriots just like, and the Patriots have always done that with a lot of players, all the cast-offs, the Wes Welkers and the Amendolas and all these guys, right? They have found other people, made treasure out of other people's trash. And that's the thing with the Lions. I think that is something different, that they're in a different boat as far as you can just talk about all these,
7 wins and 8 wins and whatever, and maybe you can win a few games and maybe you can have a little stretch. And I think Lions fans would be very happy to win 7 or 8 games and be playing, not being out of the playoffs in November. But if you really want organizational change in a meaningful way, that's the stuff you got to start doing. You got to start thinking like the Patriots. You got to start thinking like the Rams. You got to start thinking like the Chiefs. You got to start thinking about, like making significant, deep-seated organizational changes to how you approach player acquisition, player development. Because if you don't, you're gonna, and that's most of the NFL. You're gonna go from 8 or 9 wins or 10 wins one year, and then maybe the next something close to that, and you're going to drop down 6 wins when someone gets hurt, a couple, and then you're going to go back up, and you're going to, if you don't have this blueprint of who do we want to be and how do we want to get there, what is our identity? And our identity, I'm sorry, Dan Campbell, it can't be grit. That's not an identity. That's just a sales pitch. Grit. It's a good idea. Nobody knows what it means, but you got to have an organizational sort of guiding principle of what kind of player do we want, and stick to that. Don't go after other players that don't fit your system or don't fit your ideal for how you're going to be, how you're going to construct your team, whatever that is. And that's how you become the Patriots, or the Rams or the Chiefs or these, the Seahawks, the teams that are always constantly, maybe they have to rebuild a little bit once in a while, but they're consistently in that conversation of being near the top of the division.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the Seahawks, because they were as good at the development, identifying and development as anybody in the league for 4 or 5 years. And I mean, look at what they did during that stretch. They took a Lion who thrived there, won a Super Bowl. Averill, right? Cliff
Averill,
a pass
should have
rusher.
been the MVP.
Yeah, I know. It's so it's, you're right. It's all connected. Getting back to wrap this up with Grossman, it's I would bet you that yes, there's a technical aspect of what the Braves saw that helped him. There's no disputing that. But then Hinch's point is probably also true. When you have an organization that is just in the muck, boy, it's hard to thrive in that. And there are lots of examples with the Tigers right now, right? As you just pointed out. So it's probably mostly the technical part of it, but also then he's in a place where it's fun to win, right?
Yeah.
It's just more fun that way. And maybe it's not if you're a Dodger and it's every year. I remember the Braves in the 90s, even the fans kind of grew a little. They didn't get tired of it. You never get tired of it, but you'd take it for granted after a while, right? All that winning.
Yeah.
So, but that's not where they're at right now. In any case, I'm with you. I think we're in agreement, and I know the listeners like it when we don't agree so much. But I'm sorry that we both and y'all obviously agree with this too, that they got Avila wasn't enough, right? They got a lot to fix there, and we will see what happens. And the Robbie Grossman comments about getting better at another organization just solidified that even more.
Let me ask you this. Just the last thing on this point is just, and I'm putting you on the spot like you put poor Sue on the spot, but do you think they can turn this around in a year? Do you think that's possible? If they get a new general manager and change their analytics department and scouting, do you think they're going to do it in 1 year? Is this another 2-3 years? If you believe
the idea that at the beginning of this season, if they were, they could a 500 or better team potentially, if everybody was healthy and psychologically there and everything broke right, and Torkelson and Green start out and they're better. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not the NFL where you can flip so much, but on the one hand, it's easy, Carlos, to look and say, oh my God, it's another rebuild, it's another 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, and maybe that's the case. But let's see what they get if everybody's healthy. I'd like to see that. I don't think we know what that looks like. If all the young pitchers are, I mean, their best young pitcher this year, who was up with him, Terry Schoolboy, he's out now, right? So it's they just can't. I don't want to say they can't catch a break, but just a lot went wrong. Let's see if who knows? Maybe everybody's healthy and Chris Ilitch lets the new general manager spend just enough, and they make a trade or two, or make a, more importantly, find a signing or make a signing that makes a difference. I don't know. I mean, maybe. What do you think?
Is it likely? That's my thing is
No.
I don't think it's likely that
No,
it's
I
the
don't think
1 year
it's like
turnaround.
it's not impossible, right? It's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but
it's not
like you
likely.
said, everything so many things have to break right. So people are going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt for sure, and I mean, they didn't have Spencer Turnbull through a no hitter for them last year. He's not going to play all of this year, so he'll be back hopefully next year. But yeah, I mean, I think if everything breaks right for them, but that's a lot. That's a big if, possibly. But you're really looking at a couple years.
I would. I think so. I think that's what's so demoralizing is people thought. We've talked about this when we rehash this. People thought they were closer, and now you're thinking, oh my God, it's just going to go on forever. So that's tough, but you never know. I mean, I remember in 2006. I'm not saying this is going to happen next year, but nobody who thought they were going to the World Series at the beginning of 2006 or making the playoffs, right?
Yeah. Well, by the way, one fun thing about this is, as a Dodger fan, I'm there for all of it. I hate to admit this, but I'm supporting my brothers and sisters in the media. I subscribe to the LA Times, the Athletic, and I read the Dodger stuff, and as good as the Dodgers are, there's hand wringing over Craig Kimbrell and yeah, whatever. But we're not going to get into the World Series if we don't have a closer. We've got to figure this out. And what's wrong with, there's just always some hand wringing over. So, I mean, that's the thing with baseball, right? It's such a long season. There's so many factors. There's the cold. It's just one little thing that screws you up, the bullpen or the reliever, the setup guy or something, it's always so little thing. So, and to think the Tigers are so far from even thinking about that kind of level of teeth gnashing, it's like, just let us get to the postseason, please. I think they're a lot farther than anybody really wants to believe.
I think you're right. That's why we have the Lions, because they're going to get to the Super Bowl this year, and it'll all be grand, right? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
After you watch Hard Knocks episode 3, you'll be convinced. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Oh yeah, here we are with another episode. All right, let's take one more break, Carlson. Come back with our favorite thing. Sound good?
Good.
All right.
Hello. I'm Phil Friend, the host and producer of Spartan Speak, a podcast collaboration between the Detroit Free Press and Lansing State Journal focusing on Michigan State sports. Each week, I'm joined by the OGs of the MSU podcasting game, Freak beat writer Chris Laurie and LSJ sports columnist Graham Couch, as we discuss and dissect the latest sports news coming out of East Lansing. Not only is Spartan Speak one of, if not the longest-running MSU sports podcasts out there, you won't find a show with two people as clued into the Spartans as Chris and Graham, each of whom has spent a decade-plus covering MSU and bring years of institutional knowledge and insight to the podcast. And once in a while, they'll let me throw out a take as well. Along with discussing the latest news, we'll break down the Spartans' last game on the hardwood and the gridiron. What went right? What went wrong? Jet sweep. Again? For both Mel Tucker and Tom Izzo, get you ready for the next game, make predictions, and so much more. We can also guarantee at least one reference to Kalamazoo every podcast. So if you haven't already, download, subscribe, and listen to Spartan Speak on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or on your podcast app of choice.
Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, it's that time of the show. It feels like we've been here for 10 hours, but we haven't. We've made 10 hours. That's probably our fault. We've made 10 hours feel like 5 minutes, though, haven't we? And you should feel proud of that.
I think the listener would say it's
right.
the other way around. Right. Yeah.
Listen, my man, what is your favorite thing this week?
I have a co-favorite.
I thought we were
thing.
keeping this short.
Two things.
Okay.
It is short. My first favorite thing was playing golf, Shawn. As you know, as you've been a dedicated reader of my golf Free Press golf rankings.
That's my favorite stuff.
Thank you. That's your favorite thing now. So I've been having to write about it, and there was a course that's coming up in the rankings that I hadn't played for a few years, and I hate playing golf by myself. So I asked our good friend, our colleague, Tony Garcia, who we need to have on the show one of these days, by the way, to come out and play with me. And it was just really fun to play with Tony. I'd played with him before at a media day at Detroit Golf Club, and I played this other course. And it was just a joy to have somebody to talk to, and, just being able to relax and get away from the office with a coworker and a friend and hear his thoughts on, the Free Press and the business and his personal life and the great thing about golf is it forces you to waste time for 4 hours. And so just spending that time, very little cell phone work, all that was truly enjoyable. And the second part of that, Tony kind of definitely has a big part of this too, is the Free Press. Freep Stars is the name of our softball team. We finally won our first game of the season last week. The great Anjanette Delgado contributed as well. I played a very small part by hopefully not making errors, but we won. We played 2 games, a doubleheader, close in one, and we won the second game. And finally got the monkey off our back, got off the schneid. So it was a long time.
That's coming. 3 straight.
More important than any of that. 3 places. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. This is audio. We can do all cliches we want for podcasts. But it wasn't. Shawn, I don't know if you've heard this, but it's not whether you win or lose. It's how you play the game.
There you go. And keep them coming.
It was true. I couldn't care less if we went winless as long as everybody has fun and they feel they contribute. And
that's
both
how Dan
games,
Campbell
actually, even though we lost
the
first one, felt that way. That's right. And we have, we have way more grit than those stupid Lions will ever have.
Well, last quick question was Anjanette angry when she was playing?
No, she's completely pleasant and a joy to be out. She plays right field and she's our Ichiro, so she has a really high on base percentage.
That's great. That's 2 really nice, relaxing sounding. Well, the softball's more fun than relaxing. The golf is more relaxing and probably fun, I guess, if you're not shanking everything. That sounds great, Carlos. My thing, real quickly, my favorite thing is it's a kind of an odd favorite thing. It's not really a favorite thing. It's more of a gratitude. My favorite gratitude for the week. How about that? So yes, on the day, let's see. I don't even know what day to describe this. How about this? How about this, Carlos? Sorry, I can't speak all of a sudden. I was recently sitting at a stoplight. All right, I'm in the left. It's a 2-lane road. I'm in the left side, and in Ann Arbor, and I'm heading north. And there is a turn lane to my left to go into a strip mall, and there's a park on my right. And I'm sitting there, and there are 3 or 4 cars in the turn lane to my left, and I'm probably 5, 6 cars back from the light and right next to that turn lane. And all of a sudden, here comes a pickup truck, Carlos, a Nissan, Toyota, I don't know, some kind of, that's jacked up on its wheels with the fog lights up on the top, and he's coming super, super fast. I'm like, oh, he's not going to be able to slow down. Oh my goodness. At the last second, Carlos, he's in the left. And it happens so quick. He's in the left lane, the turn lane. He veers into the oncoming traffic lane, right? And goes through the intersection, which is red. It's a red light to the left. And he goes around the corner, and there's that road going into the strip mall is divided by there's a divider in there with landscaping and stuff and huge boulders. He swings around so fast and so hard, he hits the curb on the right. It ricochets him to the middle. He goes up over the boulder, almost like he's going to jump. He teeters to the right, and I think he's going to spin, and there's glass, and he's dragging metal, and everything's flying, and it's loud, and it ricochets him back to the divider again, where he goes over another boulder, and then comes to a screeching stop, and there's smoke at this point coming up. He sits there for 10 seconds. All of a sudden, all over my left shoulder, I see a cop. But he's not chasing him. He's slow rolling. So he's clearly been following him or chasing him. And then all of a sudden, the truck starts speeding, burning tires, trying to get away again. His car's trashed, and he's trying to drive it off into this parking lot to escape. And I'm thinking, okay, these cops are going to get him in there. And is this dude going to get out with a gun and start shooting? Right? He's been chased by the cops. And it's also kind of triggered me back to a really fortunate spot, but nasty accident where I got spun around on the freeway at 70 miles an hour in Chicago. So the adrenaline's coursing through. It's like the PTSD. So the light turns green. I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't want to, who knows where this is going to go. And I could see the driver was okay because he kept trying to go. And had no idea what he did or anything like that. But so I go and I get out, and I'm shaking a little bit. And it was loud and violent, and it takes you back to a certain spot. But in any case, he missed me when he came up on me by about a foot because he was doing 30, 40.
Wow.
He was probably doing 35, 40 miles an hour through an intersection trying to turn at that speed, right? And he didn't miss me by much. So I guess I would say to you, my favorite thing is that I did not get hit, and that was not worse. And also, not just me, that he didn't take anybody out. That's why cops often don't chase, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say to you, I am grateful. And that was, we don't need to say what day we're recording to this, but that was this morning. How about that? On the day we're recording.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had to catch my
wow.
breath a bit before I went on about my day. But yeah. So I'm grateful, my man.
Yeah, that's very appropriate. I would definitely say that is a moment to reflect on and be happy.
Yeah.
And it is a favorite thing. That's my favorite thing for you now.
No, yeah,
Don't get
exactly,
killed.
Exactly. I just hadn't seen anybody getting chased like that before. So not that I needed to see that.
Wow.
What's
Neither
that?
have I. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that myself. In growing up in LA with all the freeway chases, I never saw that.
Yeah,
not in
I don't
person.
need to see that. In any case, yeah, deep breath. All right. Good show, my man. I'd much rather talk about 99. Well, okay, that's a little ridiculous. We didn't say what we really thought, did we? I mean, $99.
The $99
For ice cream, I would
Sunday,
bet they're not
I'm
making
there for
themselves. Come on.
What's the most you would pay for a Sunday?
Oh, it depends on the Sunday. If somebody's making their own ice cream and making their own sauces,
Like, yeah,
you know, I'd pay $12, $15. If everything was made by hand from scratch, I'd absolutely want to reward those people for taking that time and that kind of craftsmanship for sure. But I wouldn't go out. That wouldn't be a regular
$12. You said
that'd be like a splurge you might do once a year or something. Yeah.
yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. I'd pay $20 if it was like a real, like, you know, you're talking obviously a downtown area,
Yeah.
Chicago or whatever, Detroit, LA, you know, $20 with, like, you know, truffle shavings.
You don't even need
all
that.
this
Just
different
somebody's
stuff.
making
And
their own ice cream. It's so simple and so delicious.
You want to see the milk in the cow?
You know,
too?
we don't. I mean,
geez.
fine if you want to make that part of the artistry and the show. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? One man becoming.
It'd be like a car wash. You see the cow get milk.
Yeah,
and then
human
they turn the butter
beings
or
becoming
the
one with
ice cream.
one with nature and all that. Yeah, no, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
We got to go there. We got to do. We're gonna
All
make
right.
a date. Well, all three of us, you and me.
That
man,
sounds
we'll go
great.
there
We'll
and
make
have
a date.
Try it out
and,
one day.
yeah, that'll be great. Yeah,
When
I'll
they
put
have
a card
reservations
on.
in
How about
December.
or maybe just a tweed jacket.
Of course you would.
Would that work?
Yeah, that's the Shawn
It
Windsor
is my
style.
style.
That's the
All right,
brand.
Carlos. Thank you, man. That was fun. Thanks for putting up with me.
Anytime, any week.
All right, we will be back here next week, right, Carlos? I hope, unless
Yes,
all
sir.
the
Yes, sure.
unless all the talk about Anjanette and her temper tantrums gets us fired. I don't know. It could. No, we. Yeah,
I'll show you a temper
No,
tantrum.
no. Hey, she said she wanted to be mentioned more than the last couple of weeks, so we're just doing what we're told to do. No, it's all good fun. All right, let's thank Andrew Hammond, the producer of Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. This doesn't happen without our man, Mr. Hammond. We want to thank, of course, Jeanette Delgado, the co-executive producer. I don't know. She's changing her titles all the time. It's frustrating.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
She makes this possible too. How about that? Kirkland Crawford, the sports editor, who is also a co-executive producer of this podcast, and of course Peter Bhatia, the editor of the Free Press. You can find us where you can find all your favorite podcasts: Spotify, Apple. And Carlos keeps saying he's going to start his own platform. He never has. I don't know. Soon. Okay. When you get there, rate us. Give us a shout. Well, not a shout so much, Carlos. A few words. Maybe thumbs up. That's good. And subscribe. That would be awesome. And we will buy part of a $99 Sunday for you if you do that. How about that? Okay. All right. Until then, Carlos and I will be back next week with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn.